Santa Clara doesn't forgive distraction. When the league hands you the safe path, that's usually the exact moment the 49ers have to decide between patience and urgency. Today, there's a draft detail that looks like harmless mock season talk, but it brushes right up against the long-term protection of our quarterback. There's also a pass rush bet that could turn into a steal or turn into regret. And there's a suggested trade that tests the front office's nerve and leaves a rival feeling very uncomfortable. So let me ask you this. Would you take a risk right now for a bigger leap later? This one hits the offense right where it matters most. A recent NFL.com mock draft has San Francisco taking Georgia left tackle Monroe Freeling, and just hearing that name is enough to split the faithful in half. We're talking about a long, athletic tackle, 6'7", 315, built like the kind of guy you don't find often. But here's the thing, he only has 16 college starts. And the logic behind the pick isn't fix the O-line today, it's protect the future, because Trent Williams can't play forever. That impact isn't theoretical. This isn't just about drafting a rookie, it's about who's keeping Brock Purdy clean when one of the greatest left tackles ever finally hangs it up. The idea is pretty straightforward. Bring Freeling in, let him sit, let him learn, let him get stronger, let him clean up the rough edges under the best mentor you could ask for. On paper, that's the ideal succession plan. No panic later, no scrambling, just a smooth handoff. But the conflict is real, and you already know why. Are you comfortable spending a first-round pick on a guy who might not play much in year one? Or do you want that premium pick to help on a playoff run immediately? Freeling has rare traits, but he's also got inconsistency as a run blocker and a limited track record. Be honest, does that excite you, or does it worry you? There are two clear lanes here. If the Niners take him, they're leaning into development. He gets time to marinate, the coaching staff builds him up, and when Trent steps away, you're not staring at a cliff. But if he doesn't develop the way you need, you've burned elite draft capital on a projection at the most important spot on the line. The other lane is to ignore the future and chase the present. Take a plug-and-play impact player now, even if that means the tackle question comes screaming back later. And there's another wrinkle. Colton McKivitz has been solid on the right side. If Freeling came in and proved he could be the long-term answer at right tackle first, that would feel a lot cleaner than immediately pinning "replace Trent Williams" on a guy with 16 starts. Because replacing Trent isn't just playing well, it's carrying the standard of an era. Think about that for a second. And while the offense is thinking about heirs and timelines, there's another part of this team that's been begging for help in the most practical way possible. That's where the next name comes in, one that might not arrive with fireworks, but could change how this defense closes games. There's a kind of addition that doesn't always come with the loudest headline, but you feel it on 3rd and long. You feel it in the red zone. You feel it late in the 4th quarter. When you look back at last season, the uncomfortable truth is the pass rush didn't look like the pass rush we're used to. It wasn't that relentless wave. It wasn't that automatic, somebody's getting home feeling. And that's exactly why a name is being floated as a real possibility. More prediction than promise right now, Arnold Ebiketie. Before we even get to him, let's talk identity. This defense has been at its best when Bosa is the gravity and everything else collapses around him. Pressure speeds up the quarterback. Mistakes happen. The secondary plays faster because they don't have to cover forever. But lately, in key moments, that steady pressure just hasn't been there. It's felt like too many snaps where it's Bosa and hope. Now, here's the point. Ebiketie put up 24 pressures and finished with a 16.4% pressure rate. Even on a lower usage rate, that kind of efficiency matters. If those numbers were in Santa Clara last year, he would have been one of the more productive rushers on this roster. That's not hype. That's the type of production you can actually build around in a rotation. So what's the impact? It's simple. Even in limited snaps, he affects quarterbacks. And in a defense with more talent around him, you're betting that efficiency can turn into more sacks, more forced throws, more punts, and a lot more "we're getting the ball back." But the dilemma is unavoidable. If you were the GM, are you betting on an efficient guy who hasn't fully become a star yet? Or are you paying up for a bigger name because you want certainty? Because the paths are different. If the 49ers bring in Ebiketie, it's a smart value swing. He slides into the rotation, learns, and there's a real chance he grows into a steady piece next to Bosa. But if he doesn't take that leap, you're still living with the same structural issue, relying too heavily on one elite source of pressure. The other path is to spend more for someone proven and try to buy immediate stability. And here's where it gets interesting. Defenses don't just need stars. They need waves. They need depth. They need 4 guys who can win, not just one. Because when the rush stops arriving, games slip. And there's a piece on the offensive side of this roster that could be used to turn that need into an actual answer. Maybe sooner than people think. Everybody looks at the roster and assumes the biggest tension is on the offensive line or in the pass rush. But there's a quiet contradiction sitting inside the quarterback room. In theory, when you have a young, established starter like Brock Purdy, your backup is supposed to be steady, low profile, there for emergencies. That's it. Except Mac Jones didn't stay invisible. He played. He won games. He put real tape out there. And now we're having a conversation nobody expected to be having. The numbers are the numbers. Jones appeared in 11 games, started 8, and the team went 5-3 in those starts. He completed a career-high 69.6% of his passes for 2,151 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 6 picks. That's not placeholder production. That's "this guy can still start in the NFL" production. And when you have a backup who plays like that, he becomes an asset, a trade chip, a way to solve problems elsewhere. That impact is massive because the 49ers have clear needs, especially when it comes to getting after the quarterback. And there's a suggested deal that frames it in a very direct way. A trade with the Steelers that sends Mac Jones to Pittsburgh, bringing back a 2026 6th-round pick and edge rusher Nick Herbig. Herbig had 7.5 sacks last year. So let me put it to you like this. Does that excite you, or does that make you nervous? Because this is where the locker room logic meets cold roster math. Do you keep a high-end backup, knowing the season is long and injuries happen, and stability at quarterback is everything? Or do you flip that luxury into immediate defensive help in an area that has already hurt you? Nobody forgets what it looks like when a quarterback goes down, but nobody forgets what it looks like when your pass rush can't finish either. 2 futures again. If that trade happens, the Niners turn a secondary asset into direct pass rush juice. Herbig steps into a rotation with Bosa and the other edge pieces, and suddenly you've got another finisher who can actually close out drives. But if Purdy gets nicked up after that, you're walking into a season with less proven options behind him, and the risk spikes fast. On the other hand, if Mac stays, you keep insurance at the most important position in sports. You keep continuity. You keep the ability to survive a rough patch. But you also accept that other needs that have already shown up in big moments, still have to be solved another way. Now connect those dots. A developmental tackle to guard the future. A pass rush value swing. A backup quarterback who might be worth more to another team than he is to you. And a defense that can't afford to live at the bottom of the sack list. If that bet hits, people won't realize the full value until it's already changed the season. Because there's an invisible line between good and unstoppable, and it usually gets drawn in the trenches. The 49ers know it. Finishing with one of the lowest sack totals isn't just an ugly stat, it's a warning light. That's why turning indirect resources into direct pressure makes so much strategic sense right now. Picture the possible shape of it. Bosa is still the center of gravity. Michael Williams brings young explosiveness. Bryce Huff adds speed. And if Nick Herbig actually comes in through a deal like that, you're adding proven production. 7.5 sacks from a guy who knows how to finish a rep when the window opens. That's not a promise, that's results. The impact is immediate. Pressure changes everything. Quarterbacks speed up. Throws get sloppy. The back end doesn't have to cover forever. The defense controls the rhythm. But the conflict doesn't go away. Is it worth touching a stable spot, your backup quarterback, to fix an unstable spot that can swing playoff games? What's the biggest urgency right now in your mind? Because the 2 outcomes are clear. In one, the pass rush gets reinforced and the defense goes back to closing games the way we've seen it do at its peak. 3rd and longs become punts. Opposing offenses lose confidence. Levi's Stadium feels different. In the other, the price you paid shows up somewhere else. Depth issues, a surprise injury, and suddenly the whole narrative flips. And that's why none of this exists in isolation. Building a roster isn't just stacking talent. It's balancing risk. It's choosing which weakness you can live with while you erase another. When you tie that to the idea of drafting Freeling as a long-term tackle answer and taking swings for more pass rush production, you start to see it's not one decision. It's a philosophy. So here's the full picture. A potential heir being developed quietly. A pass rusher who could arrive at the right price. A valuable backup who could be turned into pressure off the edge. And a front office that has to pick between protecting tomorrow and attacking today. That was the promise from the start. Balance versus impact. And every move points to calculated risk in exchange for controlling the next chapter. So I'm asking you again, would you protect the future, or would you go all in on right now? Drop your answer in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and let's keep this faithful conversation rolling.